My name is Tyrone Jackson, and I want to share with you some thoughts from Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It's not the typical, I have a dream that all black people will be able to join hands with white people. It's not that. Most of Americans already got that. It is from that same speech, though, that he delivered in 1963, the I Have a Dream speech. In fact, in that speech, he actually offered a warning to black people. And I want to speak very briefly about that warning and tell you the implications that it has for today. Today is January 20th, 2017, and it marks the first day of one of the most controversial elections in the history of America, the election of Donald J. Trump. And so let's get started. This won't be long, but let me read this excerpt. He says, "And there is something that I must say to my people who stand on the worn threshold which leads into the palace of justice. In the process of gaining our rightful place, we must not be guilty of wrongful deeds. Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness and hatred. We must forever conduct our struggle on the high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative process to denigrate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. The marvelous new militancy which has engulfed the Negro community must not lead us to distrust all white people. For many of our white brothers, as evidenced by their presence here today, have come to realize that their destiny is tied up with our destiny. They have come to realize that their freedom is inextricably bound to our freedom. We cannot walk alone." All right, so in this excerpt, within the speech, the I Have a Dream speech, he makes two very definite statements. And what he's alluding to is he's asking, or should I say, what he's asking the government for is that the government would acknowledge that they wrote a promise through the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution to all Americans. And that promise, generally speaking, is the right to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And he was saying that they came to Washington to cash a check or to cash in on that promise because black people still did not enjoy those three things. He went on to list police brutality, to list the inability to vote in some places, and also the inability to eat and to have lodging at restaurants. These were very real realities in the 60s. All right. So Dr. King came and he said what Americans want, what all Americans want, is freedom. They want liberty and they want the pursuit of happiness. And black people are no exception. We are Americans and we desire freedom for ourselves and our families. But then he cautioned, he said, black people, in seeking freedom, we must be careful not to drink from the cup of bitterness and hatred. Now, what he's talking about here is the balance of freedom. Every freedom comes with responsibility. There's a phrase in the law, it's called the clean hands doctrine. When you go to sue someone for wrongdoing or for compensation, the law requires that you come with clean hands. And what that means is that you did not partake in any activity that would have caused harm to yourself for which you were seeking compensation from the other party. So in essence, you couldn't have gone and stole someone's watch and then tried to sue them for punching you in the face. Because had you not stole their watch, they would have never punched you and you wouldn't have been harmed. I'm reissuing or reiterating Dr. Martin Luther King's statement right now because the black community and the Democratic Party as a whole has not only drunk from the cup of bitterness and hatred, they have actually engaged in setting up an enterprise to manufacture bitterness and hatred. Not only manufacture bitterness and hatred, but they have literally bought and co-opted the mainstream media to distribute and wholesale bitterness and hatred, and have sought to collect power from this manufacturing and wholesaling of the very thing that Dr. King warned black people from simply partaking of. It's very important that black people and the rest of America recognize that this America is not that America. This America has afforded everything that black people asked for and has given them equal rights, opportunity, and status under the Constitution. But it's also important to realize that this quote unquote civil rights movement or social justice movement is not that civil rights movement or social justice movement. What has happened, if you look at it not even carefully, let's just look at it generally. The civil rights movement was started in black communities and in black churches. Black people came together to address needs that affected everyone. The black community was not given opportunity. Where is the social justice movement coming from? Where is it originating today? It is not originating in the black community. In fact, George Soros has funded and organized directly and indirectly most of the groups that are actually organizing this Black Lives Matter movement and the social justice warriors and all these far left nonprofit organizations. If you look at them, they're not even run by black people. Black people barely even participate in it. This is not a grassroots organization. What happened, and it's completely dependent upon money. What happened when our 44th president, but Barack Obama entered office? The Democrats actually ran Congress. They had a majority in Congress, including the presidency. I mention this because Dr. King gave a warning, but he didn't tell you what the repercussions are when you actually drink from the cup of bitterness and drink from the cup of hatred. We are seeing those repercussions right now. The repercussions are that you lose power, that you actually lose legitimacy. It's almost like the boy that cried wolf. When the wolf actually came, nobody cared to come to defend him. Black people have allowed third-party globalists and leftists to cry wolf in the name of black people, and they are losing respect and power across this country. And I was saying that when Barack Obama came to office, Congress, there were 60 Senate, Democrats had 60 Senate seats, and in the House there were 235 Democratic seats. By the time that he left office, Congress had lost as a whole. Congress Democrats had lost 82 seats. Not only that, but over 900 state legislature seats Democrats have lost. In fact, I think the number is 910 Democratic seats in state legislators across America were switched to Republican. People talk about Donald Trump as being controversial, as being not representative of America, but a simple observation of the fact. He may be, let's assume that he's a racist. Let's assume he's a chauvinist. Let's assume he's a bigot and a sexist, and he has a bad hairstyle. Assume all of that. All of those things and the Democrats' hatred and violence toward him does not explain the fact that they lost over 910 legislative seats during Barack Obama's term as president. It does not explain that. What does explain it is that the American people have wholesale rejected democratic principles. We have rejected socialism. The American people were offended by that the Congress under democratic rule took away the right to choose our health care, that they forced a mandate upon us, literally severed jobs. They are offended that the Democratic Party are more interested in promoting sexual identity than promoting employment, than promoting opportunity. They're offended that the Democratic Party has used race baiting as a bludgeon or a hammer to shame white people and to pass policies that violate the fundamental freedoms that every American is supposed to enjoy. Let's look just down the list. During the Barack Obama presidency and during Democratic control, our freedom of speech has become almost non-existent. Not only were Tea Parties targeted under the IRS just for having conservative principles, but freedom of the press. People forget that Obama spied on the press. He literally spied on the press. Whistleblowers across the board have been prosecuted over in higher numbers than anywhere else, under any other president. whistleblowers, people that are supposed to, or people that that gain notoriety for exposing government corruption. Obama has hunted them down and prosecuted them like a pack of dogs. What about the freedom to privacy? Under this technocratic era and under the government support of people like Zuckerberg and Elon Musk, freedom of privacy is no longer existent. They have been hunting since he stepped in office to destroy the Second Amendment. These are things that every American should be concerned with. This is, to hell with a transgender person, to hell with gay people. I don't care what you do in the privacy of your bedroom, but I do care about you promoting your social identity while sacrificing my constitutionally protected freedom. And I am not alone. This 910 legislative seats demonstrate what Trump is now receiving, demonstrates that American people care about the foundation of their government and their constitution. And what you're seeing now is what happens when a party, or when black people in general, begin to drink from bitterness and hatred, and they begin to attack white people and set up racist organizations like Black Lives Matter and use the Justice Department to penalize people for being white. This is not good. And the warning simply is this: if Democrats and black people don't adjust their attitude and start actually trying to promote Americanism and not just their own racial advantage in America, your party will be destroyed and you will have no place in this country. I'm telling you, people are getting tired of being treated like second-class citizens in their own country. I feel free to welcome all remarks, but the facts are the facts. With all freedom comes responsibility, and the black community has not kept up its responsibility for the freedoms that it's enjoyed. This last statistic: most of the problems in this country and in the black community stem from two things: poverty and single parenthood. People say that black people suffer, and they suffer from police brutality, but it's not because you're black. It's not because we're black. The problem is we have actually subscribed to a criminally based culture. What we actually feed ourselves promotes and encourages crime. And in addition to that, 70% of our households are born, 70% of the people or children born to black people are born into single parent homes. This almost ensures poverty. When you add a criminal-based culture to poverty, you will have crime. And you can go across any urban area where black people are, and this will be verified. Don't blame white people for that. Learn how to keep your penis in your pants. Women, stop slutting yourself and stop opening yourself up to every man just because he has a nice car or watch. Have respect for yourself and your children. Demand that a man commit to you before you give him anything. This simple action can at least eliminate one of those options, and it actually leads to being responsible for the freedom that you enjoy. Because if you don't do that, if you continue to sexualize yourself, sexualize your body parts, prostitute yourself, act in ways that are hostile to everyone else, what you end up doing is creating children that I have to support, that other Americans have to support. And if you force me to support that through the government, I will resent you. And I will be perfectly justified in resenting you. Understand this. I have no problem helping you if you're trying to help yourself. If you're trying to be responsible for the freedoms that you have, I have no problem helping you. I gladly welcome. But when you're being lazy, when you're taking advantage of freedoms, and you're forcing other people to carry a load that you're perfectly capable of carrying yourself, you will breed resentment. And this is what we're talking about with the distrusting of white people, with the breeding hatred or taking from the cup of hatred and bitterness. We have to be responsible as Americans, and we have to value above everything else personal responsibility, personal and individual sovereignty, the ability to be self-reliant. This has to be at the heart of every American, or we risk causing other Americans to be burdened by our very existence. And no society can exist like that. God bless you. God bless America. And I'm sorry that I have to bring such a harsh message, but someone needs to say it. And unfortunately, not many white people will say it because they'll be considered to be racist. I'm willing to accept the label of racist or as Uncle Tom, to at least say that I gave you warning before I turned my back completely on you.